Hello. So there are two things you need to know about me before I go into my story. One, I go by Izzy, but my full name is Isabella. And the second thing is that when I was younger, I was obsessed with people who were also called Isabella. And maybe that's a touch narcissistic, but it wasn't that serious. I was like 10. So I was obsessed with Isabellas, Isabels, Izzies, Izzos, anything, like any variation of the name, I was obsessed. So Queen Isabella, Fairy Princess Isabella, I already am obsessed, I love her. Anyone called Isabella, Isabella Swan when Twilight came out, obsessed. I just sort of like identify with the name and I just think that I'm that person. It's almost like a same name, same spirit situation. I think that we are one. So when I was asked, when I was about 10 in year 5, we were asked to do a poster on anyone in the world. I chose this explorer named Isabel Eberhardt. And I have no idea where I found out about her. I think I just Googled Isabellas of the world and she came up. And we had to create a poster. So I was really into scrapbooking when I was little. So I got out my scrapbooking activity pack and I created this big, beautiful poster. And what I knew about Isabel is that she was a Swiss explorer. And now I can't really remember much else about her, but I know she was a Swiss explorer and she was obsessed with North Africa. And she wrote about the topic of North Africa a lot, but she'd never been there until much later in her life. So then I was obsessed with not just North Africa, but the whole of Africa. And so on my little poster, I put pictures of lions, tigers, like an elephant. I don't know if she saw an elephant or a lion or a tiger. I just put it on my poster. So then I was so excited to learn that later in that year, I was still in year 5, I would be going to Africa. And my family had arranged this trip. It was just my mum and my sister and I going. Dad was staying at home for literally no idea what reason, just over us. And so we went to South Africa, and then we went to Swaziland to visit my uncle and my auntie who were living there at the time. So we get on our holiday. It's all going relatively well. It's a bit chaotic because it's just mum, but a bit crazy. And then we end up getting to Swaziland and my uncle's like, surprise, we're going on safari. We're going on safari. Isabel Eberhardt loves Africa and I'm going on safari. I am an explorer and I'm going to discover a new species of animal in Africa and it's going to be fantastic. But I was mostly so excited to finally see a lion in real life. Like you just don't, the zoo doesn't cut it. I wanted to see a real African lion. So we get to this game park, I think it's called Makana Game Park in Swaziland. I looked at their website and their pamphlets, obviously, and it said that you will see some of Africa's icons. So I was like fully gonna see a freaking lion. I was so excited. So we get there and we go on sort of our first tour of the day. And we're sort of like, the way these tours work, they're in these open land rovers. So no like roof or sides or anything, you're fully open to the elements. It was amazing. It was an extremely hot day, sweltering under with no sun protection. I obviously wasn't wearing a hat or sunscreen because the melanin will protect me. And was sort of like looking for these animals, so excited for what I would see. And we're sort of going on the little land cruise. It goes on this little track, driving through. There's lots of, obviously, African bush. There's lots of shrubbery. There's lots of, like, heat waves. There's, like, trees. There's not one fucking animal to be seen. They're, like, asleep. And then the tour guide's like, finally, we come across the beautiful gazelle. I was like, great, a gazelle, like a deer, like what's the point? And now, you're so lucky today, you're seeing wildebeests. Oh, wildebeests, great. Like, where's the lion, my friend? Like, where? And he's like, we are one of the only game parks here in Africa that does not feature cats. Why the fuck am I here? if there's not a lion or a tiger? So I soon learned that that's sort of all that's at the game park. There's gazelles and there's wildebeest and there's elephants and giraffes. Yeah, cool. There's a rhino, all right. But there's not a lion. So I'm sort of disappointed at this point. And I know Isabel would be disappointed in me because I've gone to Africa and I'm not seeing anything cool. And so I was in a bit of a mood. And then, so we go back to our beautiful hut accommodation. It's incredible. And then the tour guide's like, well, you're very lucky because we're actually going on an evening safari today as well. And I was like, oh, an evening safari. And he's like, sometimes the animals are a bit more lively at night time. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to see a lion, but maybe I'll see a fucking cool wildebeest doing something crazy at night time. So we go out again in our roofless Land Rover, and we start driving, and it's sunset time, so it's stunning. I should be more freaking grateful. It's beautiful. But at the time I'm like, well, there's not a lion. And so we're on our beautiful tour. The tour guide's pointing out, more gazelles, more wildebeest. They're still pretty freaking dead. They're not doing anything. They're just I wanted I wanted them to be running around crazy. And so then it starts getting really cloudy, really dark. And I look at my sister, I'm like, this is Africa. Why is it cloudy? I thought it was sunny, hot all the time. And then it starts sprinkling. And I was like, why is it raining in Africa? I'm challenged in many ways, geographically, anything to do with weather, anything to do with nature, don't understand. So I was like, Sophia, it's not meant to be raining in Africa. And so it starts really pouring, pouring with rain, to the point where our little open air Land Rover is filling up with water. And I was wearing Birkenstocks, all brown, obviously, all brown outfit, brown top for exploring, brown little t-shirt, brown cargo shorts, brown Birkenstocks, not the ones over the foot, through the toe. Wearing my little Birkins. And they were getting fully soaked. And the tour guide is like, okay, it's getting a little bit crazy. We might have to go back. Again, my disappointment, I haven't seen anything cool, and we're going back. It's oh my God, this holiday's cursed. So we start heading towards the exit, and at this point it's bucketing rain to the point where you can't see anything in front of you. It's hurting, it's that piercing rain that's stabbing you in the head. And Sophia and I are looking at each other Jesus Christ, this holiday. It's because Dad's not here that it's raining. It's crazy. And so really bucketing down, and we finally get to the exit, and we're like, okay, at least we're going to go back to a beautiful dinner, and we're going to go back to our nice hut, and we can just relax. And the tour guide sort of turns back at us and is like, I am so sorry, but the exit has flooded. We won't be going this way. The exit's flooded. We're actually in a flash flood. Yeah. Are you kidding? In Africa? A flash flood in Africa? You're joking. I'm a bit thirsty now because of that water talk. So he's like, we actually have to go a different way. And it's then that I'm having an outer body experience. And I remember back to my poster of my good friend Isabel Eberhardt. And I remember that I made a nice little handwritten note in the corner, put it on some nice glittery cardboard, stuck it onto the bottom of the poster with those double-sided adhesives. And that little note read that at the age of 27, Isabel died in a flash flood. In Algeria. That's in Africa. She died in a flash flood in Africa. So I remember that fact, and I was like, oh my God, same name, same spirit. I'm dying in a flash flood in Africa. And so then it sort of gets the stakes get high, and it's oh my God, death is impending. This is it. I'm only 10. I haven't lived. Oh my God. And so are racing back in this Land Rover through to this other exit. The tour guide explains the main exit's flooded, but we've got this second exit. We don't really use it, we don't really maintain it, but it can also get us out of the park. And so we're driving through, and because this track hasn't ever been maintained, there's like trees and sticks and branches everywhere. And I didn't say, but I got my hair freshly braided in Africa. Long, beautiful braids connected me to my roots, gorgeous. But they're getting stuck in the trees. They're like ripping out as we're going. My face is all scratched up. Like everything's wet. My cargo shorts were not appropriate for this activity. They're soaking and they're see-through. So embarrassing while I'm about to die. And so then we're like nearing the exit, and the guy's looking back at us, we're nearly there, it's okay, and we're like, we're gonna be saved. And then the car sort of like comes to an abrupt halt, and we're just fully bogged in the mud, like fully bogged. And still at this point, I'm like, where the fuck's the animals? Like, I haven't seen anything. And so then he's like, okay, we all have to get out of the car, and we all have to push, like me and my sister who's 8, push the car out of the mud to get us back on track. And so we all get out. I jumped down into the mud, lost my Birkenstocks. Do you know how expensive they were back then? I lost my Birkenstocks in the mud, like both, not even just one, fully submerged, and I was like not gonna go through literally the shit on the floor and find my Birkenstocks. So they're gone forever. I'm still pissed, still knowing that I'm going to die because Isabel Eberhardt, Isabella Wilson, same name, same spirit. And we're finally like pushing, I'm not doing anything, but the other people on the tour are pushing the car out of the mud, and we're finally freed. And we all in this like chaos of pushing the truck thing out of the mud, I finally look up and there's like a million animals running around us like circle of life. Like fully circling us. And it's amazing. Like wildebeests are cool. Gazelles are so cool. Like giraffes like whipping their necks like crazy. Elephants like, there was a rhino. Like it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. But it's also pissing rain, and I still think that I'm going to die. And so we're Sophia and I are looking around and like, this is actually so good. Get back in the van, ASAP, like we're going out. So eventually the exit is near. We are able to make it out of the park. And, we live. We survived. I'm here. I live. And so we then enjoy a beautiful dinner of wildebeest steaks, gazelle sausages, quite delicious, bit gamey. And we go back to our hut and we have a beautiful bath, and it's just like it never happened. And so when I sort of was preparing for this story, I was like, did I make up that whole thing? Like, surely I wasn't in a flash flood. That's so made up. But then I found this diary. Yes. And it's so funny because Isabel wrote a lot about North Africa. And, obviously lots of people read her journals because she's got a Wikipedia page. So for full disclosure, this is not my diary that I wrote. It's my sister's diary. So she was 8 at the time. Slightly less literacy skills than I had. But she's written, we went to Makaya Game Reserve, which is where we went, so fact checked. We saw all these animals. No lions, you will see. We stayed in a cool hut, and we were in a flash flood. It was awesome. And she's written awesome. Big letters. And you know what? She's right. It was awesome. And I think Isabel would have been really proud. Thank you.